Welcome to a special edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with Major League Baseball legend Dwight Gooden on the 2025 Hall of Fame march and a stellar career. On this special episode, we talk with this legendary pitcher about getting back on the ballot to get his rightful place in Cooperstown. Since his legendary career came to an end, he has been inducted into the Mets Hall of Fame, the 2023 Hall of Game Inductee class at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum in Kansas City, and got his number 16 retired by the Mets in 2024. This is the next logical step to immortalize his amazing career. Along with the stats, this is a man that has traversed the fires off the field and is a stellar man contributing his time to a variety of charitable causes, being a good family man, and having a huge heart that is full of humanity and strength. It's indeed an honor for this host to interview my childhood hero and get not only the questions answered I dreamed of asking my entire life, but get his thoughts on the march to Cooperstown. Enjoy this interview.
Thank you so much for taking a minute out. It's an honor. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. No problem.
So I want to begin our conversation with, how does it feel to think about getting into Cooperstown and being in the Hall of Fame?
I think, when you're a kid, you don't think about the Hall of Fame as much as playing in the major leagues. But once you're accomplished getting to the major leagues, then you start accomplishing all the different accolades. You start seeing people that you play with going to the Hall of Fame, or just people you played against going to the Hall of Fame. And you figure, you compare with these guys. And then I started thinking about, having a good shot, especially now. I mean, having my jersey retired, getting to the Negro League Hall of Game, going to the Mets Hall of Fame. That's the only thing missing is Cooperstown. And I think not to talk about myself or feel cocky or anything like that. And there's nothing against guys that are in the Hall of Fame. I think all the guys that are in the Hall of Fame, they deserve to be there. But I think my numbers and my career that I had stacks up against a lot of those guys that are in there, if not better. And so I think I should be given a little legitimate chance. I think what kind of hurt me, they look at the off-the-field stuff, but they're starting to get and understand and knowledge that mental health is like a disease. Addiction is a disease. Those are things that you have, and you have no control of it. The only control you have is treating it and trying to do the best you can, and moving forward with that. And I think it should be all around. But plus, I think I set the bar so high when I first came into the league, my rookie year, my year after that was compared to 2 years. Really fair, but that's just the way it was.
And I think that's where I'm coming from with the mentality on this. I think that, I did an interview and started looking into this a few weeks before they decided Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe back on the ballot. And that just added a little bit more to me thinking there needs to be a different kind of mindset, because just like you said, your numbers stack up. There's so many things that have been positive about your life since you've been away from baseball. I just think it's time for there to be a level of a mentality that's different to allow people to get into the Hall.
I strongly agree with that. It's weird. I'm talking about myself, but at the same time, like the problems I had off the field, I try to turn that around and help people who may be struggling with the same things that I would do, whether it's mental health, addiction, what have you, to help them. And I think what better way is to give them faith in whatever they're trying to do and accomplish, that they still know they have a shot and a chance to continue with whatever sport they're playing, whatever they're going on with their career, that, hey, if Doc Gooden was able to turn his life around and get it going, why can't I? Just to give them hope as well. And hopefully that helps. I don't know how they look at it. I know a lot of writers have a lot of power and they have a lot of say-so. And I just hope that they don't take off the field stuff and hold it against me, because I did. Yes, I do admit the things I did. I don't justify anything, but I shouldn't be given a life sentence because of the problems that I had, especially when I turned that around. At the same time, I just feel my career still matches up with a lot of guys that I played with. Obviously they had more starts because the suspensions, the numbers fall. But same thing when you look at the WAR. I still have the highest WAR since Babe Ruth. There's a lot of things that I've still accomplished that can't be taken away. I still can't today, that are records that probably never be broken, especially the way pitchers are held now with the way the system is. Nothing against the pitchers, but the amount of innings these guys are going and the way they're pitching, it doesn't add up now. So there's going to be a couple of years when they start getting these guys and both the men, like say for instance, where guys winning Cy Young now, you win 9-10 games, you win the Cy Young. And again, it's nothing against these guys. It's just the way baseball is now and the way the system has changed so much from when I played.
Absolutely. So I got to know, going to Cooperstown, what was one of your favorite exhibits? What was your experience like actually being at Cooperstown?
I think seeing my jersey and my baseball spikes in there, I still felt like I was a part of it, but my plaque wasn't there. And it's still fun going down there. I go every year up there this July as well. I go down, that Friday. I do autograph signings Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning. It's still fun, but every time I'm down there, you still get this feeling, and I shouldn't probably have that feeling, but I still get that feeling that, you think that what could have been, what should have been, but at the same time, I say, I did everything I could possibly do. I won every award that a pitcher could possibly win. And a lot of the stuff I did as a teenager that I did, so I have nothing to be ashamed of, but I just still feel like I belong. That's just my feelings.
You were a pitcher for quite a while. It was in your bloodstream. Do you ever miss that routine of being a major league pitcher and being out there and pitching?
That's a great question because, normally I don't miss it because, towards the end of my career, my shoulder wasn't the same, so I have a little pain in my shoulder. But you do miss being around the guys, you miss the plane rides, you miss hanging with the guys on the road. But last year, being at Citi Field watching the playoffs, being in the stands, you start to miss it. You start missing the roar of the crowd. When the crowd's standing up, the curtain call, you start missing it at that time during that point. And that's the only time I really miss it is during the playoffs. Playoff and World Series time.
And the one thing that struck me last year during that playoff time, you and Terrell Strawberry were on the panel talking to Derek Jeter and Big Papi and a couple of those guys. And in your influence and the way you influence those guys, that's one of the reasons why I think it's paramount for you to get in the Hall. Your wield of influence on all these players that are already Hall of Famers is astounding.
Yes, I got to meet Jeter his rookie year in '96, and getting to know him and talk to him and tell him what it was about, dealing with the media, dealing with the expectations, and just having a standpoint. He said it himself in the air that I helped him a lot, coming up as a kid, and stuff like that goes a long way. And that's what it's really all about, being there for the young guys and your teammates and helping them. And when you hear that you're a great teammate from someone else, they say, "Oh yeah, Doc's a great teammate." That means the world to me because those are your brothers. You're with those guys more than with your family. And it does mean a lot. Even CC Sabathia, I met him when I was with Cleveland, and he was a mountain player. And interacting with him and developing a friendship with him in '98 at that time, and now seeing him going to the Hall of Fame, I couldn't be so proud or more proud for him with the hard work he put in and the way his career turned out. It's just very, very rewarding for me to watch these guys go in.
So what is a day in the life of Dwight Gooden in 2025? What is it like for you?
Well, now I do stuff. I do a lot of meet and greets in the suites at Yankee Stadium. I like to do more at Citi Field. I do some there. I do camps and clinics at Long Island. I do a lot of stuff with different foundations. Autism, I do stuff with them as well. Alzheimer's, I do stuff with them. And I have 11 grandkids now, so I'm spending a lot of time back and forth, New York and Tampa, watching their little league games and that thing. My youngest, she plays softball in Maryland. I'm watching her a lot. My youngest son just transferred from University of Maryland to Sacramento State University. So I just got back from California, getting him all situated. He transferred. So a lot of time is spent with the kids now that I really enjoy. And then when I have my time, I still love baseball. I still enjoy going to Citi Field and Yankee Stadium and enjoying the games as well.
You had an incredible career, and there's so many memories that people have of you on the mound. But from the man himself, what was one of your fondest memories, one of your best memories of pitching a game in the major leagues?
I think from a personal standpoint, I would say if I could take two, I would say the first one would be my first big league start in Houston and having my mom and dad there to watch the game. The Mets was kind of to fly my parents in and get my first big league win as my parents are there. I would say pitching a no-hitter, which turned out to be the last game my dad saw me pitch. He was very sick. He had been on dialysis for 15 years, and he had started having a lot of health issues, and he was having heart surgery. The day after I had pitched, I was supposed to go home to be with him that day before, and I decided I want to pitch, and I pitched the only no-hitter of my career, and he passed away a couple of days later. So I would say those two moments there were probably the biggest I ever had for me personally.
And the one thing about being a pitcher and being a professional athlete is you're not doing it for the awards, but they come along. What was one of the awards that you got in your career that just surprised you? Not your favorite one, but one that you just didn't expect and it kind of threw you for a loop.
I would probably say the AP Player of the Year, because that's dealing with all sports. And I found out I beat out Michael Jordan and John McEnroe for that one. A lot of people don't even know that. I wasn't aware of that because the only autograph signers, nobody never asked for me to sign that. But I would say that was probably the biggest one because you're not just dealing with your sport, you're dealing with all sports. And obviously, in 1985, Michael Jordan and John McEnroe, the top of their game as well as I was. And for me to be named AP Player of the Year over those guys, that's the one that means the most to me and that I never expected.
So who was your hero growing up? Who was the person that you've always looked up to that has inspired you to evolve into who you are as a man today?
I would say it's two guys. My dad was one. He was the guy, the leader of the house. I followed him everywhere he would go. He took time out, even after work, to take me to the ball field, make sure I had all my school supplies, make sure I had all the things I need. We went to a lot of spring training games. And I would say Pete Rose, literally that we talked about at the beginning. Pete Rose was the first ball player that I met. We went to a lot of the spring training games. I lived in Tampa. Cincinnati Reds had spring training in Tampa. Me and my dad used to go to a lot of the games. I got Pete's autograph when I was 9 years old. And one of the things Pete told me, he goes, "Hey, kid, keep playing hard. Maybe one day you'll be playing with us." Not knowing that 10 years later, I'll be facing Pete. And I remember telling him the story about when I met him. Obviously, he didn't remember, but then that summer when Cincinnati came to New York to play us, I brought the piece of paper. I still had the autograph on it and showed it to him. And we became friends all the way from 84 to the time that he passed. And last year in July in Cooperstown, my grandson got his autograph. And he was 12 at the time. I was 9 and he was 12 to get Pete's autograph. So it's kind of like going full circle. And Pete was always great and kind to me and a good friend.
That's amazing. So your pitching style, that's the one thing about the best pitchers in baseball. There's such a unique style of pitching. Did you emulate anybody? How did you develop that style of pitching?
It was my dad. You know, the only thing I regret before my dad passed is not asking my dad where did he get his baseball knowledge from. My dad was from a small town in Georgia, Cobb, Georgia. He had a third grade education, but he knew so much about baseball. Like he coached Little League, boys, he coached girls. He coached men amateur pro baseball. He coached men softball, and I would follow him around everywhere. And I remember I was 7 years old, and he'd take me to the park every day, and without no glove, no ball, no bat, and we'd just work on mechanics. He was big on mechanics. I had the big leg kick. He taught me the leg kick to make sure by the time I land, my arm was in good position to throw. He taught me his curve. At 7 years old, it wasn't what you throw, it was how you throw. So he thought as long as my mechanics was sound and right, it's okay to throw a curveball at that age, even though his ligaments, the bone is still developing. But, you know, I never had any arm problems until like one. I finally had my first problem, but it wasn't because of my throwing a curveball. But at 7 years old, but my dad taught me the basis of my mechanics from that age.
I got to know, do you visit Tampa much? I mean, is that a place you go to that often?
I go to Tampa, you know, all my kids, not all my kids, but most of my kids live in Tampa. My grandkids, my great-grandkids, they're all in Tampa. So I go there for a holiday. And 3 of my grandkids played their first year of softball at the Little League part where I played my Little League baseball at. So that was great. That was like great going back to that park to see them play.
So was it always going to be baseball for you? I mean, if baseball didn't work out, was there any other dreams of what you wanted to do with your life?
Oh, baseball was it. Baseball was something that's all I wanted to do with baseball. And probably had my dad been a football coach or, you know, I probably would have been football, but my dad was a baseball guy. I mean, he'll watch games. Back then, it was games on Saturdays. We got all the Atlanta Braves games on the radio because we lived in Florida. So he was always in front of the TV and had the radio going. So that's all we did. I was a daddy's guy. That's what I wanted to do. Whatever my dad did, I wanted to do. When we left the house, I wanted to follow him, do whatever he did. So baseball was my thing from 7 years old. Even as a kid, on the weekends when there's no school, I would get up in the morning, eat my cereal, and go outside. I'm throwing the ball against the house, throwing the ball up in the air, playing catch with myself, doing whatever I can towards baseball, imitating the major league hitters, batting stances, the pitcher wind up like Nolan Ryan, Tom Seaver, guys. Baseball was in my blood at a very young age, and that's all I knew. Even as an adult, when I was in the big leagues, I would come home when Sheffield was playing on the West Coast with San Diego, my nephew. I would come home after my games and listen to his games on the radio if I could find it. I love the game that much.
So you were very close with your father. How much of the relationship you had with your father has permeated into you as a parent and being a grandparent?
Oh, man, if I could be half the man that my dad was, it would be great. And one of the things that, even though we were talking about the Hall of Fame earlier, I said, whether I get in or not, I want to be like a Hall of Fame dad or granddad if I can, just to kind of be like my dad was. My dad, he worked up until, his health started, deteriorating, and he was always there for the family. Family came first. He always preached family responsibility, be accountable for kids. And I try to do that today. I try to do whatever I can for my kids and my grandkids, because when I was playing baseball, I missed a lot of my kids' school activities. I missed a lot of Little League games. And so now I try to be there for my young kids' games and late school activities, and my grandkids and my great-grandkids. Try to be there for them as much as I possibly can. So I'm in Tampa a lot just because of that. I want to be there for them and show them how much, I care, and that's the most important thing for me right now, is my kids and grandkids.
So the one thing about your career is a lot of things happened when you were young, even in that later teen realm of your life. Do you ever think you would have wished that things would have been pushed back and it would have all started later? Do you ever think about when it happened and how it happened?
I look at a lot of things that happened in my life as a youngster, like even when I was 5 years old, watching my sister get shot 8 times, left for dead, even though she's still alive. Going through that trauma, not thinking it's trauma. My mom, unfortunately, shot my dad. I mean, he lived. The things that I witnessed as kids, you don't pay anything as normal as a kid, because you grow up, men in my generation, and my household was taught, men don't cry, men don't talk about problems, men don't hug another man, have a drink over it, pull your boots up, be a man about it. You don't talk about those things, but later on they have an effect. And again, I'm not justifying anything, but I just wish that during that time I could have dealt with those things a lot sooner. Even my addiction, when the addiction started, I wish I could have asked for help and took it serious at that time, and then wouldn't have affected me later on. But looking back at it, I mean, that's where my life turned out, and I would love to have done all that over and not went through that. But I think by going through that now, at my time in my life, I'm able to help others that are suffering and going through different things as well by doing this. I lost a lot of time in baseball, and I like a lot of negative headlines, but at the same time, I try to take that mess and turn it into messages and help those who need help or maybe going through different things, or families may be going through different things, and help them as well. And I think helping somebody in their life is more important than the baseball. Because baseball, that was my dream, but now you're living for a different purpose, and you're trying to use it to help others. I think that's the most important thing you can get. My dad always told me when I was young, what's the purpose of having life if you don't have an impact on another's life? So now I just try to turn that and do whatever I can to help others in need, no matter what it is, whether it's addiction, whether a kid's in the hospital, whether a neighbor is suffering, no matter what the situation is, if I can help someone, I'm willing to do it.
So what was your favorite Major League Baseball park to pitch in? What was the park you always looked forward to going to?
Besides home, besides Shea?
Yeah, besides Shea.
I think, Shea was, obviously, that was a favorite. Pitching at Shea was no better feeling than every time we got 2 strikes on the batter in the stadium without clapping, 1 strikeout. That gives you chills. That gives me chills. I'm thinking about it. But I would say pitching on the road, probably Dodger Stadium, only because it was nice and high, and the way the stands was behind home plate, it made it seem like the mound was a lot closer than what it was. Had a nice drop, and plus at nighttime, they always had the fog coming in. That the heavy air. The ball didn't travel as much, and me being a fly ball pitcher, that worked to my advantage. So I'll say besides pitching at Shea, I would say probably pitching at Dodger Stadium.
So in those early years at Shea Stadium, when there was, the pressure was mounting and the records were starting to be etched, who was that person? Whether they were someone on the staff, a grounds guy, a coach, who was that person that anchored you, that you looked forward to running into at the ballpark?
I would say Mel Stoudemire, hands down. Mel was a guy, early in my career, my first 2 years, he would always find something to challenge me with. I worked on the side, on my side day. He will find something I can work on, so I wasn't just complacent with for the success that I've been having. He will always find something to work on. And when I was on the mound pitching, Gary Carter played a big part of my success as well, because he always wanted the best out of me. He didn't care if it was winning 10-0. He wanted me to pitch the complete game. He wanted to shut out. He wanted 10-plus strikeouts. Felt like I was messing around, not throwing my best. He would literally come out to the mound and get in my face and let me have it. So he was very, very tough. I would say Gary Carter and Mel Stoudemire had a big, big influence in my career, as well as my dad.
And there was a note, too, in one of your biographies on John Cumberland. How essential was he in mechanics and learning the game?
So Cumberland was great for the mental part. I remember in high school I hit a kid in the head, and the paramedics came on the field, and I thought the guy was dead. I mean, obviously the kid turned out to be okay, but from that point I was kind of afraid to pitch inside the hitters. And in A-Ball, Lynchburg, Virginia, in 1983, John Cumberland was my pitching coach, and I started out the year 0-3, and he was going to send me down to low A, and John Cumberland said, no, we're not going to send him down. We'll have him miss a start. I'm going to work with him. But we didn't work on anything. We just talked about pitching inside and the importance of pitching inside. And he said, next time, when you pitch it, if a guy hits a home run for you, the next guy wants you to drill him in the leg. If a guy hits a ball off you, the next guy wants you to knock him down. After starting 0-3, after about 5 starts, now I'm like 5-3. He said, okay, no more knocking guys down. I think you get the message now. I ended up going 19-4 with 300 strikeouts. But just by having that mental talk changed my whole philosophy on pitching and my attitude, and gave me the confidence to pitch inside. And it probably changed my whole career, because had he not stood up and talked and spoke for me, I would have got sent down to low A, and who knows what would have happened, or if I'd have been in Major Leagues in '84.
So, when you look back on your career, you played in one of the hardest media and intense pressure situations for both New York teams. You won a World Series with both of them. How special is that when you look back on your career, that you were on both sides and you hit that pinnacle with both?
One of the highlights of my career is as well, because in '86, you win Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, World Series, and then in '94, you just spend, and the team want to cut ties with you, which I always felt I wanted to stay in New York. I wanted to make things better in New York. I didn't want to go out on a note. And Mr. Steinbrenner gave me the opportunity to stay in New York and do that. And then now in '96, I pitched a no-hitter that year. I lose my father that year, and we won the World Series that year in '96. And I can say both New York teams on both sides within 10 years. That was an incredible feat, because not many guys can say they've won with both teams. And like you said, the media attention in New York, and to do it in New York on both sides is something that nobody can ever take away from you. And I'm very proud to be in that situation and for that to happen. I'm very thankful for Mr. Steinbrenner for giving me the opportunity as well for that to happen. And I remember same thing with the Yankees. I started off 0-3. I don't know what it is about 0-3. And they took me out of the rotation, and they were trying to decide whether to release me or sit me down. Unfortunately, my good friend David Cohn got an aneurysm, and George Steinbrenner was the only guy they put Gooden back into the rotation. I think it was my third or fourth start back in the rotation is when I pitched a no-hitter, and then I won like 8 games in a row, because George had the confidence in me, and I didn't lose confidence in myself. I mean, that meant a lot to me, a lot. And to be able to do that, like you said, in New York meant even more. If that would have happened in Pittsburgh, Minnesota, not to take shots at those cities, but it wouldn't have been the same as doing it in New York, and for both New York teams.
So I got to know, of all the numbers you could have picked in your career, why was it number 16?
So what happened with 16 was, like when I was in high school, in Little League, I always won number 3 and number 10. Number 10 was one of my favorite numbers, and number 5, number 9, but 10 was always my number. So when I got drafted in 1982, I go to Kingsport, and I never forget the guy that had been there for like 3 years in rookie ball. His name was Russ Ort. He had number 10, and I remember he goes, I said, Russ, what's the chance of me getting that number? He goes, I don't care if you're a bonus baby or not, or who you are, you're not getting my number. And so I told the equipment manager, what number do you have that's close to 6? I mean, it's close to 10 that's not 13, because I always felt like 13 was a bad luck number, even though my dad, that was his number, but I just felt like 13 was a bad luck number. He said, I have 16. I said, okay, I'll take that. So I got 16, and then, my rookie year, I did pretty well. I called it Little Falls, which is the high A. The high rookie ball. Then next year I go to Lynchburg, I figured I might as well stay with 16. It was available. And the funny story, I got to tell you this. So I stayed with 16 in A ball, and then when I got called up to AAA for David Johnson, I was 28. And now, the next year, I get invited to spring training as a non-roster player. And so in spring training, I went number 64. I make the team, I go to New York to work out, and there's a number 35 hanging up in my locker. But I don't see nobody around with number 16. So I go into Charlie Samuel's office, who was the equipment manager. I say, can I have 16? He goes, no, get out of here, kid. Just be happy you're on the team. I'm like, wow, okay. And then Frank Cashman, the general manager, told me, if I have any problems with anybody, just come let him know. So I went to Frank Cashman's office. I said, Charlie won't give me 16. But Frank came down, told Charlie, get Gooden 16. So I got 16, but I found out he didn't want to give me 16 because him, Charlie, and Lee Mazzilli was good friends, and Lee was the last guy to wear 16. And for whatever reason, he didn't want to give it out. So I got 16, and then in 86, we traded for Mazzilli. When he came back, I offered 16 back to him. Even though I offered, but I was hoping he'd say no, which he did. He said, no, it's your number now. And that's really how 16 came about.
Wow. That is such a great story, man. So do you remember the very last game you pitched in Major League Baseball?
My last game, I really don't, because my last year, it was so weird. I want to say, hold on, see, because I know my last year, I signed with Houston. I pitched one game, I got traded to Tampa. I think I had 8 stars, I got released. Signed back with the Yankees. And I remember making a couple starts, and then I was in the bullpen rest of the year. So I'll probably say in the playoffs against Oakland, I'm guessing.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Everyone has their perception or their idea of who they think you are. Your family, your friends, your fans, everybody you've worked with, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think, me personally, I think I'm a great guy, very kind-hearted. I think sometimes I'm too nice, and people take that for granted. I'll get anybody to show up my back. I would talk to anybody. It don't matter if you're the president or you're homeless. I'm willing to have a conversation with you. I'm a guy that loves baseball. I'm a guy that loves people. I'm very sensitive. I care what people say and think about me, and I do care and how people feel. Because sometimes just speaking to a person, you never know how to uplift them because you never know what a person's going through. I think I'm just a good, kind-hearted person. I don't have a tough bone in my body towards people. On the baseball field, I was tough. Off the baseball field, I'm not so tough. I'm just a good, caring guy.
Final question. When you finally get that call from Cooperstown, what's that going to be like? How is that going to feel?
Oh, man. If I get a call from Cooperstown, I mean, that would be like, wow, how can you say? It will actually be, I feel like I've accomplished everything I can possibly accomplish as a baseball player for his Mets Hall of Fame, number retired, Negro League Hall of Game. Cooperstown Hall of Fame. Now, all I got to do is continue living the life I live and inspiring people to let them know they can be the same way and fulfill their dreams too, no matter how many times they stumble. As long as you keep getting back up, you have opportunity.
Amen. Well said. Mr. Gooden, this has been an absolute honor and a pleasure. I'm going to keep pushing. I really appreciate you taking time out today, and
yes.
Thank you so much for what you've done. You've been such a huge influence in my life, and to talk to you and to be able to do this is an honor of my life, so thank you, sir.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, and good talking to you. And you got my number, so let's stay in touch anytime. If you ever come to New York this way, want to see a game, grab a bite, or whatever, please let me know.
Absolutely, I certainly will. Thank you, sir, and have a wonderful night at the Yankee Stadium.
All right, thank you. Have a good day, too. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we continue our push to get the mighty Dwight Gooden rightfully enshrined in the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. If you want to sign the petition, the link is here in the show notes. Keep spreading the word. Doc deserves to be immortalized as one of the best ever to play Major League Baseball.
Waiting, makes the catch.